Hey, what's up, Internet? My name's Austin, and today we are going to be getting into subnetting. We're going to be getting into the what, the why, and we're going to ask ourselves a question. I'm going to use some quick maths to show my work, and then we're going to close out the video. So if that sounds good to you, be sure to stick around. And also, if you're looking for something specific, be sure to check out the chapters below, and let's just get into it. Your company has 500 hosts to put onto the network. You will need a maximum of 28 hosts on a network at a time. IANA will allocate your company as many 24 blocks of IPs that your company needs at 10.10.0.0. What is the most appropriate subnet? That's A. B. How many subnets will be created? C. How many -24 blocks will you need? And D. What will be the usable IP range in the last subnet? Juicy, juicy stuff. Subnet the pie. Okay, so let's talk about what is subnetting. Subnetting is basically, think of a pie. A pie is your network, right? And if we want one host to talk to another host on this pie, it has no problem talking to each other. Now, let's say we cut the pie in half, or we subnet the pie. You've created two subnetworks in that pie, and everything within those subnetworks can talk to each other, but traffic doesn't cross, right? So one half of the pie can't talk to another half of the pie without that traffic first leaving that network entirely and then being routed back into the other side of the pie. Okay, so why is subnetting? Subnetting is partly, it's mostly security. So why on earth are we complicating things and cutting a network up into smaller networks? It doesn't really make sense. Well, let me stop you right there. It kind of does. So let's say you have a huge network, right? And on that network, you have your finance department, and they have a cloud server or a share drive or whatever. And they keep all of the financial documents on the share drive. Well, unless it's password protected, anybody could just, go and look at those files. I don't know about a lot of businesses, but there's a bunch of businesses that don't want their financial records out in cyberspace. But that's fine because they're the only ones on the network. Well, okay, so they make up, let's say, 8 computers max out of your entire network. Well, our entire network is 254 usable IP addresses, just as an example. Well, we're only using 8 of those IP addresses, and we have all of these other IP addresses we could be using, but we can't because we want to keep our financial documents secure. So what is the answer to that? Subnetting. I'm not sure if you guys know this, but this is a subnetting video. That's the idea behind subnetting, is so now we can subnet that small little network all to itself. And we can actually use different subnets on the same network. It's called variable subnetting. That's not the subject of the video. For this video, we are just focused on subnetting. And before we get into the question, I just want to ask you guys to drop me a like on this video. I put a bunch of work into it, and it just helps it get discovered. So yeah, let's just get into the question. Okay, so what is the most appropriate subnet? My company has 500 hosts. Okay, that is for this question, does not matter. Doesn't matter how many hosts my company has unless they expect all of those hosts to be on the same network. But if we go to the next line, we see you will need a max of 28 hosts on a network at a time. Okay, great. 28 hosts, that's what we need to make our subnet. And as you can see with this graph, 28 hosts is not going to fit neatly into a subnetting category. So what do? We go the next one up, obviously. The smallest subnet that 28 hosts can fit into. Well, I know the next highest power of 2 after 28. Not that 28 is a power of 2, but just you get what I'm saying. Is 32. That is the next highest power, right? So I am looking for 32 hosts on a subnet. I don't have all of the tables memorized off the top of my head, but I have the next best thing is I can figure it out without a pen and paper, without my phone, without the internet. And it's super easy. You just take your golden rule. What you should just know is a dash 24 equals 256 hosts, period. It always will equal 256 hosts. So we are working with dash 24 blocks of IPs. Those have 256 IP addresses associated with them. Okay. So if a dash 24 is 256, then a dash 25 is half of 256. So it's 128. Dash 26, half 128, 64. Dash 27, half of 64 is 32. So we're looking at a dash 27 network. All right, so that answer is kind of the way that I would do it. I feel like it's more pragmatic. You're able to do it on your feet. You don't have to pull out a pen and paper and do a bunch of math. But if there's interest in me going over that book method of arriving to the answer, I have absolutely no problem with doing that as long as there's interest in it. Let me know down in the comments if that's something that you might be interested in, and let's just keep moving forward. How many subnets will be created? Well, great question. How many subnets will be created is dependent on your total amount of hosts divided by the subnet that you're going to be using, or the amount of hosts in that subnet that you're going to be using. So we have 28 hosts, but the amount of IP addresses, or the amount of address space that that subnet uses, is 32. It's 32 hosts worth of IP addresses that we're going to be using. So what we need to do is take our total number of hosts and then divide it. We're going to divide it by 32. And I might have a calculator over on my other screen, but you're going to come up with 15 and change. Basically, what that means is round it up. You need 16 subnets. All right, so C, how many dash 24 blocks will you need? Great question. Let me tell you. The dash 24 blocks, we know how many subnets we're going to need. So we need to figure out how many subnets will fit into a dash 24 block. So dash 24, as I discussed earlier, 256 hosts. We have blocks of 32 hosts. So what we need to do is take the 256 and divide that by 32. So that's going to give us 8 32 block subnets inside of a single dash 24 block, right? So that's 1. How many do we need? 16. So if we need, if 8 of those 16 will fit into a single dash 24 block, then we just need 8 more. So we just need 1 more dash 24 block. So how many dash 24 blocks will you need? We're going to need 2. And lastly, D, what will be the usable IP range in the last subnet? Boy, here we go. All right, so this is one of my favorites. So D, what will be the usable IP range in the last subnet? Okay, so this is 2 questions kind of put into one, right? First, we have really what is the last subnet, and then once we figure that out, then we can figure out usable IP range, right? Okay, so the easiest way to find the last subnet is to just do really basic, quick math. And basically, we're going to take 32, which is the number of hosts available in our networks, and we're going to times it by the subnet that we're trying to find minus one. And the only reason the minus one, so if we were trying to find our first subnet and we times that by 32, then we would arrive at 32, which is not the answer. We want 0 because 0 is our first network every time. Our second network is 32. So that's why we do the minus one. So we're just going to do, we're looking for the 8th subnet. So our number would be 7 because 8 minus 1. And we're going to do 32 times 7. We're going to show up at 224. So our first, or what we call the network ID, is 224, and all that mean that you can't use that IP because it's the network ID. It's the equivalent of whenever you are trying to use a .0 or a 10.10.0.0, you can't use a .0.0. That's the network ID. You can use .1, right? So using 224, you can't do that. You can use 225 though. That would be normally that would be like your gateway or something like that. But .225 is perfect. That is the first usable address in the subnet. So what about the last address? That would obviously be 255, right? Well, that's not the usable address because it's the last address in the subnet, right? So you've got broadcast. That's your broadcast address. You can't use that. That's not a usable IP, right? So 254 would be the first usable IP. So our usable IP address range would be 10.10.1 because we're on that second one, on that second -24 block. 225 to 254. And that is the answer to our question. All right, that's going to do it for the video. Make sure to leave me down in the comments below if you have like another question that you want me to answer, if there's a topic that you'd like for me to cover. That kind of stuff really helps drive the channel and kind of show me where I need to go with this. And yeah, I hope you guys have a fantastic day. That's going to do it for the video, and you guys take it easy. Bye.